Welcome to this joint meeting with the Lords and Commons Committee, where our witnesses are Will Quince, who is the Parliamentary Under Secretary and Minister for Welfare Delivery, and Neil Couling, who is the Senior Responsible Owner for Universal Credit at the Department for Work and Pensions. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for making time for this meeting between the two committees of both houses, which is a unique occasion. Baroness Kramer.
Thank you. My question is on monthly assessment. If I could just paraphrase from information or evidence that was received by the Economic Affairs Committee. The calculation of universal credit in each monthly assessment period is based on the circumstances that apply on one day in each month. When a claimant's circumstances change, such as changes to their housing costs or to the number of people in their household, these circumstances are treated as though they applied to the previous month as a whole. So, Minister, do you accept that this is a very arbitrary system? And if you do, that are you willing to consider the recommendations that were made by each of the committees? I mean, the Work and Pensions Committee, particularly focusing on the daily pay rate, the Economic Affairs Committee looking at a fixed 3-month payment, but there were also many other alternatives that were brought before the committees. And do you recognise that this is an arbitrary issue and that it would be sensible to consider what alternatives could be used?
So, I mean, thank you, Baroness Kramer. Certainly, I don't accept that it's arbitrary. And I'll hand over to Neil Couling in a moment to talk through why we have the monthly payment cycle that we do. Now, I'll hand over to Neil in a moment, but just to touch on this point that the committee picks up, and I think it's based on Gareth Morgan's proposal in relation to a daily basis. Now, yes, of course, in theory, it is possible to conceive of a daily basis. It is. I suppose I say in theory because it works on a spreadsheet. The question is whether it would work in reality based on the volume and certainly the number of cases that we process. So hypothetically, it could and potentially even would work, but it would rely on very accurate recording of start and end dates. That's the first point, as well as people working regularly within a period. Now, say, for example, someone may be paid weekly or monthly. It doesn't necessarily mean that they work a full week or a full month. They may only do one day's work. Now, what if they work for more than one employer, or who may have different employers who have different payment periods? Or what if they have a partner with a different working pattern and therefore different daily rates? So such a system as is being hypothesized, yes, in theory it could work, but it couldn't easily be operationalized. Because whilst you can describe it for an individual case and you can work it out on a spreadsheet, I very much doubt that you could actually run it at volume, particularly as daily increases the number of possible changes to bring to account determine that entitlement. I'll hand over to Neil, who'll be able to explain it far more articulately than I can.
I think that was brilliant, Minister. The thing I'd add is you have to have rules in the system in which to make it work. And you try and keep those rules as simple as possible that they can apply to every case, because if they don't, you end up adding on and adding on and adding on, and that's exactly what happened to the legacy system. Lord Freud asked me 10 years ago now, how did it get like this? And it was well-intentioned changes, layered on layered on layered. And that's one of the reasons why we've resisted some of this, because we know that the inevitable consequence of that is to build a complex system that nobody stands a chance in understanding. So we have simple sets of rules that apply to all cases, and you can't optimize the system from everybody's individual perspective. It's a bit like the old Junior Choice song about the old lady who swallows a fly. You swallow a spider to catch the fly, a bird to catch the spider, etc., etc. And that's what happened with the legacy benefit system. And we're determined to try and stop that happening as much as we can. Lord Freud and I actually fantasized about having a simplicity rule that future ministers, like the one sat next to me, would have to satisfy in order to bring in a change. The Treasury wouldn't let us do that. But the reason behind it was you try and stop this accretion of decisions on top of the system, because that's what makes it difficult in the end to understand and run.
Well, could I just challenge you on consistency, and then I'll stop, because I would like an answer to this. In earlier questioning, when you basically asserted that there should be monthly payments because that mirrors the way that the world of work works,
Yeah.
I very much doubt that any employer pays an employee for a month on the basis of the number of hours that he happens to work on one particular day.
No, exactly, and neither do we. I mean, that's what Mr. Morgan's system unfortunately leads to. I mean, Gareth is. I mean, it's very clever. It's very attractive. You just can't make it work.